All right, great.
Okay, thanks so much, everybody. All right, so my name's Bernhardt, and I'm going to be talking about online marketing for pastured products. So you can go to the next slide. I am way up in northeastern Minnesota, although I am a Practical Farmer of Iowa member. We raise grass-fed beef and lamb and pastured pork. And we is me and my husband, Jason, and my 5-year-old son, Harvey. Although my husband has an off-farm job and I do most of the daily work. You can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about me is that I grew up on a corn and soybean farm in southern Minnesota. I never thought I was going to be a farmer, even though I had a long history of many generations of farming behind me. I worked in politics and government for a while. I lived on the East Coast. I worked in marketing. I worked for Elmhurst Dairy, which was actually the last remaining dairy processing plant in New York City for a short time. And I worked for a small food business called Roaring Brook Dairy, which sold cheese-making kits primarily online. And then I found myself not liking a desk job. And that picture of me in the top in the middle was actually the first place I ever grew a vegetable, even though I grew up on a farm, was on a rooftop in Brooklyn. And that was like my way of getting out from behind my desk and getting some fresh air and like starting to experiment with what a different lifestyle would look like. So I actually got laid off from my job and ended up moving to upstate New York to Kinderhook Farm, which is the picture on the right. And this is a large grass-based livestock farm. They have 1,200 acres, over 500 sheep, 500 cattle. I don't even know how many chickens anymore. They have geese, they have pigs. And really this was my introduction to rotational grazing and regenerative agriculture. And they have a really big focus on humane handling and animal welfare. They are animal welfare approved. And they direct market everything. They have a farm store. They do agritourism with a farm stay. And they have direct relationships with butchers and restaurants. Next slide. So I really fell in love with farming and decided that I wanted to kind of make a go of it, move back to Minnesota and do this for a living. And I met my husband, Jason. This is him. I brought him to Kinderhook, and I had already started my first pastured pig operation. And so I kind of say he fell in love with the pigs as he fell in love with me. But we did all of this networking. So we went to all these conferences. We did the Land Stewardship Project's Farm Beginning programs. We did the PFI winter conference. And when we were at actually a field day, we met someone who said, hey, you should come on the bus trip with us to Gabe Brown's farm in North Dakota. And so we hopped on a bus with all of these Iowans and went to North Dakota. And this is where I kind of say that I converted Jason to the religion of soil health and dragged him into this farming endeavor with me. And most days, I think he'd say he's okay with farming. But anyway, next slide. So we finished the Land Stewardship Project's Farm Beginnings program, and we jumped right into buying farmland. So what we did was we bought 160 acres up here in northeastern Minnesota. We started with 20 sheep, 15 pigs, 2 cows, 16 chickens, 4 dogs, and absolutely zero infrastructure. So there was nothing here but hay fields. Next slide. And fast forward 6 years later, and you can see all of the amazing structures my husband has built. He happens to be a very talented builder, which is helpful if you're going to buy raw land. We're also now fully fenced. We have water lines to all of our pastures. We got equip grants for that. We and have basically a business, Medicine Creek Farm, of over 500 customers. And we direct market to the Twin Cities and Duluth. And at this point, we feel pretty successful. Not that there's not things we want to change or grow, but we don't have to fight to find customers. Basically, we easily sell out, and that has been the biggest success so far. Next slide. And so just to quickly touch on the two things we're kind of expanding into is agritourism. So my husband rebuilt this 1880s timber frame barn, and in the first floor built this amazing farm stay where actually I'm sitting right now. And so we're going to start renting that and doing more tourism, allowing our customers to have an experience on the farm, you know, pet the sheep, pet the puppies. And then we also have this vintage remodeled camper trailer on Hip Camp that we started last summer. And so that's just another way of bringing in new customers, people who have an interest in the outdoors, but maybe haven't been introduced to regenerative agriculture before. Next slide. And then also, being up here in wolf territory, we quickly started a growing pack of livestock guardian dogs. And that has extended into raising livestock guardian dog puppies. And if you're interested in seeing the puppies on Instagram or Facebook, you can look at #puppycam. Next slide. So really, that's just all to give you some background about who I am. But now to talk about you guys and who you are. One thing I'm going to assume about you is that you're probably really busy. And also, I know most farmers are kind of stubborn. And so when we're talking about online marketing, basically my approach to it is that I'm going to be protective of your time. So, you know, there's a lot of like best practices out there for marketing and things that people will tell you to do. But the reality for a lot of marketing advice is that it's not aimed towards farmers. And you're balancing a lot. You're balancing not only producing the thing that you're selling, but now you're also, you know, direct marketing it and creating a brand and putting it online. And so really my goal is to help you be honest with yourself about your personal strengths and weaknesses so that you can pick the avenues of online marketing that are the most productive for you, that won't drain you, that won't feel like something that you're dragging your feet to do, and that will really get you the most bang for your buck. But in addition to that, I think it's important that you know, you be curious about your customers and don't assume that you know what they want, and also be willing to try something new. So, you know, sometimes it can be scary, but technology really can make your life easier. And a lot of things with online marketing are really designed to do that. So just keep an open mind about that. Next slide. So there are some just really basic marketing fundamentals. And the three ones I think that are most important to start with are identifying your ideal customer. So thinking about who your ideal customer is and what they want. And really the idea behind that is if you can really be targeting the customers you wish you had, you can focus in your strengths on reaching the customers you want and not wasting your time reaching a bunch of customers who are actually draining you or taking more of your time than you wish. A next basic is identifying your secret sauce. So secret sauce is another way of saying like your value proposition. So it's why you are the farm for your customer. So, you know, who's your customer, what they want, and then why are you the customer or the farm for them? And then really the last kind of basic of marketing is choosing your tools and the plan, your plan to reach them. So finding your buyers, growing your audience, and managing those relationships. So we'll try to touch on all of this. Next slide. So your ideal customer. We want to ask yourself how your ideal customer interacts with you and your business. Be really specific. Like if you could do one thing before your season ramps up and get really busy, it would be to try to think about this. Think about your ideal customer. How often do they buy from you and what are they buying? How are they buying from you? Or is it online? Is it at a farmer's market? And what else do you want them to do? Do you want them to come to your farm? Do you want to ask for referrals? Do you want them to be buying more than one time a year? So this is just an example of something you can write out. It might seem silly, but thinking about this is really going to help you hone in on how to market to them. Next slide. So in thinking about your ideal customer, you can think in the terms of like your target market. again, this is like an exercise to really just think through who that person would be. So I've got a picture there of a really specific customer of mine. You know, you can make a lot of assumptions about her. She's a mother, she's a certain age range, she probably lives in a certain part of the cities. She, you know, cares about where her food comes from, and she's got kids who she wants to feed healthy food to. So knowing that kind of helps you narrow your channels, so that you aren't wasting your time reaching out to certain avenues where only people who want to buy at Costco prices are looking. And then you want to think about what they're interested in, you know, sustainable consumption, health and wellness, knowing your farmer personally. And that helps you figure out which language to use when you're writing your marketing materials. Next slide. And so another way of saying your value proposition. So this is one thing that's pretty much going to be overarching for anyone offering pastured products. So people are going to be buying from you because they want to know their farmer directly. And this is about transparency. It's about connecting. It's about, you know, wanting to like feel a little bit cool that they know a farmer, that they have a relationship with a farmer, but it's also about being able to like ask and see directly how their food is being raised. So that's about transparency. They feel like they know who you are, and it's not just, you know, some mystery farmer on the end of this long supply chain. They also care about animal welfare and humane handling. And, you know, this comes through in like the photos you're sharing and the videos you share of how you're interacting with your animals. Like I have a hashtag belly rub bacon because I give my pigs belly rubs, and people love to see that and love to know that the animals are in their natural environment and well taken care of. And, you know, ethical is one word to use in your marketing materials. And that's one way to speak to that issue. And then also your customers care about the environment. So they care about that you're taking care of an ecosystem, that you care about healthy air and water. They are going to be looking for words like regenerative and sustainable. And you're going to want to constantly just be thinking about how that is coming across in what you're conveying. And then your customers also are going to care about health and nutrition. So the nutrient density of their food is a big issue. They want to know that, you know, the pastures they're raised on are healthy, that in turn the animals raised on those pastures are healthy, and that in turn the meat that they're feeding themselves or their families is going to be healthy. Next slide. But all that said, you individually will also have a secret sauce. So you might be embodying all of those values, and you want to make sure that you're conveying them and are clear about the way that you're conveying them. But there's also probably something that sets you apart, and that's like a really special value that you are offering. So you should think about, like, are you a farmer that prioritizes customer convenience? Do you deliver? Are you really community driven? Do you do a lot of on-farm events? Do you do mutual aid, or like, are you really into quality? Are you the farm for a foodie? And then how are you communicating that value? Like, is it clear to your customers, or is it only something that you realize? And this is really where your authenticity gets to shine. And, you know, you really want to be giving your customers a good sense of who you are. So this is just one example of Melissa Driscoll at Seven Songs Organic Farm. This is kind of her philosophy on her website, which really speaks to all those values we talked about. And, you know, she happens to have the labels to back it up. That's not 100% necessary, but it's important to her. And it's important that she conveys that to her customers. Next slide. And then what kind of should grow out of that is your brand. So your brand is really a snapshot of your business that should give you a clear identity, make you quickly recognizable, and communicate that extra value or your secret sauce. So these are just a few brands or logos that I really like. You can obviously look at the different ones and kind of get a sense of what that farm is about. I'm friends with Lauren at Dancing Gnome Farm, and like her farm and her brand is all about fun. And when you interact with her and her farm and her employees at the farmers market, like that's the sense that you get, that they're fun, that they're like this young crew of people, and you want to be friends with them because they have fun. But that might not be your secret sauce. You might have, more of like a sophisticated feel, like Abraham's Table Farm, or like Cylon Rolling Acres is all about goat meat and raising goats on pasture. And that is like clear in their identity about all of their branding. And your brand isn't just your logo. I mean, this should extend across everything. It should be the feel of any marketing material that you make. And the logo is just like a visual identity, but you will want to be consistent across all of your avenues. Next slide. And then we can talk about all the different tools for creating your online marketing. So we're going to talk about finding buyers, growing your audience, and then how you manage those relationships with your customers. Next slide. So number one thing, how are you inviting your customers to discover you? Like, how are they finding you now? This should be the number one question that you ask your customers constantly. And like, there's this little snippet here. This is literally how I respond to every email I get. Someone reaches out to me a question, the first thing I say is, thanks for reaching out. How did you happen to hear about us? I've gotten great feedback about what marketing is working just based on that simple question. And that's, it's free information. So you might as well ask the question and use that to help you figure out where your customers are coming from. You might have a sense of where your ideal customer is finding you, but you might find out by asking the question that it was someplace else. So, I can say personally too that it will probably change over time. When we first started, most of the time the answer to this question was so-and-so told me about you, or I heard about you from a friend or your sister or something like that. And over time it changed to a little more traditional marketing, like places I was trying to advertise. Whereas now when I ask this question, it's almost 100% that people were Googling either grass-fed meat or organic meat or regenerative agriculture farm and finding me that way. Next slide. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can market your products. Some things are just non-negotiable in this day and age, and your website is going to be that. So if you don't have a website, this is the place to start. So I used Squarespace, and basically in doing our holistic goal setting through the Land Searcher Project Farm Beginnings program, we decided early on that we didn't want to do farmers markets, that we were not weekend early morning people, and that we're a little bit too introverted to spend our mornings that way every weekend, and that we really wanted to sell primarily online and do deliveries. And so we decided that our website really needed to be beautiful and compelling. And so I just decided right away I was going to spend a little bit more money to do Squarespace over something free in order to kind of just make that the focus. And so there are tons of free options too. You do usually have to pay for hosting of your domain, no matter where you build the site. But there are lots of places to start for beginners. Weebly and Wix. And then, all of these programs now have built-in templates to really help you. So if it's totally not your thing and not your skill set, I can say that, you can pay a little bit of money to have someone build your website for you, and it's definitely going to be worth it. Like, you should be investing in your website as your number one marketing tool. And then, right there on my first page, I kind of have that value proposition right up there. So it's super clear: regenerative, ethical, humane. And then in terms of what I feel like my secret sauce is, and what I also think is important if you are going to be selling pastured products online, is to make the ordering process really clear and to make sure that you have photos of what people are getting. So, most of us are probably selling either custom wholes and halves or quarters, or we're doing like USDA beef box bundles. So I do both, and I have it really clear, the process for ordering both of those ways. You know, back when I didn't have all of this information on my website, like the number one question I would get was like, what do you get with a quarter animal? And so I finally like made sure that I was answering all those questions on my website. All the information is there. For some people, it might actually be overwhelming, but I am like the kind of customer where I don't like to feel incompetent. And so if I were approaching a new thing, like I really want to order this, but I feel silly. I feel stupid that I don't know how to order custom and I don't know how to fill out a cut sheet. So that would stop me from placing an order. And so I really tried to make my website answer that for myself. Like, what would I want to know? And so I have just a really clear outline of like, this is the process. Like, you place your deposit. I'm going to contact you and have you fill out your cut sheet. I'm going to give you a tip sheet to answer all the questions about how to fill out your cut sheet. Then, you know, I'm going to contact you again with your final invoice and arrange a time to make that delivery. So all of that is laid out really clearly. And, you know, for some people who aren't my ideal customer, like they might just want to get straight to it and order and call me up on the phone. But that's actually not my ideal customer. Like, I actually don't have time to talk to a bunch of customers on the phone, and that's not my strong suit. And so I've made it so that my website answers all those questions. And my ideal customer is someone who is going to go to my website, find all the information they need there, not contact me, and place their order. Next slide. But just to show you a few other kinds of operations, you know, this is Melissa Driscoll, who I mentioned earlier, Seven Songs Organic Farm. You know, her specialty is Minnesota garlic, ginger, and tomatoes. This is not pastured products, but she does have pastured poultry as well. But this is just to show you like a different avenue. So her secret sauce is really growing these like difficult or unusual things for either wholesale value-added food producers or chefs. So, but straight away, you see her right there on the front page of her website, and you can tell that like she's got a larger than life personality. And I would say for any farmer, pasture products or not, the number one thing you want to do is make sure that your face is on your website. If you don't have a picture of yourself or your family on your website, that's the number one thing to do. Also, people, your customers, are going to be connecting with you based on your story. So you really need to have a bio. And, you know, storytelling is like the oldest form of communication in the world. This is how people learn. This is how people connect. And it's how people feel connected to you and feel that you have credibility, that you're a real person, that there's a real person on the other side of this website, that you're really there doing this work that you're talking about. And people want to feel that personal connection. It's going to make them more likely to buy from you. If you're really uncomfortable talking about yourself or, you know, trying to like find this compelling story, you can ask someone you know who's really close to you to write it for you. And that would be, you know, my best piece of advice. If you don't already have it there, get your bio on there, get your photo there. And next slide. And then this is just one more example of another, I think, really great website. So Leslie at Silent Rolling Acres raises pasture-raised goat meat. It's right there. It's really obvious. And also there she is, her face, her family out in the pasture with the goats. So right away, people are like, okay, I know who the farmer is and I know exactly what she's offering. She, you know, started out doing more like farmers markets and stuff, but she has slowly moved and transitioned. She's done a lot of marketing training to kind of change her business. And so now she's selling all online and she's also shipping across the country. And I show her as an example because she's got a really specific niche product. But I think that there is actually a huge opportunity in our country for both lamb and goat meat. And so if this is something you're thinking about, I think that online marketing is where you shouldn't be investing your time. You know, you might not down in Iowa have a whole big market for lamb super close to you, but you're not that far shipping distance wise from Chicago, which should be a huge market. And you should tap into those markets, and you should figure out the shipping game, and you should make sure that everything on your website is clear and easy and professional, so that any customer from farther away can easily figure out how to place that order, feel connected to you, feel good about the values of supporting pasture-based products. And then you should work hard to answer any questions they might have about, you know, cooking something that some people aren't familiar with cooking. So that's another thing that Leslie's really good at, is that she spent a lot of time on her blog coming up with recipes and sharing that. And then what's more, she's also helping other goat producers by sharing kind of what she's learned in marketing. And so you should definitely check her out just as a resource too, if goats are what you're into. Next slide. Then the second thing you're going to want to work on, if you haven't, is search engine optimization. So I realize that, you know, some people have probably worked on this, but for a lot of people, especially if you're beginning, this is like something you haven't thought about at all. But in terms of like, so this little graph I have on the left is from a marketing firm. And this is, you know, what they're saying is that local businesses should spend the majority of their time on their website, and then their Google My Business listing, and then social media. So a lot of people think the focus is on social media these days, but really your website should be number one. And then search engine optimization, the number one way to improve your ranking on Google. So when people go and Google like grass-fed beef, is to create this Google My Business listing. So if you haven't done this, Google My Business is a free account. You sign up for it, you put your information into their program, and that's how you get on Google Maps. As soon as you're on Google Maps, you're gonna get a lot more credibility from Google's algorithm, and you're gonna start showing up better. You know, there's a lot more to search engine optimization than just this, but this is the like quickest and easiest way to improve your SEO if you haven't done any of this. In terms of other websites, there are also like, so Squarespace comes with SEO programming in it and will help you enter your keywords so that your search rankings are doing better. I think like WordPress has like some added apps you can install to improve SEO with keywords. So if you haven't done SEO before and it's like you've got a goal to improve your online marketing, I would make this like researching it, spending more time looking at it, improving keywords on your website a priority. And maybe that's a winter project for next winter. But there's a lot of resources out there to help you. And if you don't have a Squarespace website, there's still a lot of resources that they offer in terms of just teaching you what it means to put your keywords on your website. Next slide. But this Google My Business listing is also important. There's more information you can enter in here. So you can have your products on your Google My Business listing now. It's not selling through Google My Business, but it would link then to wherever you link it to on your website. So probably your order page. And then, you know, this is just important because again, when people are searching for you, they see right away what you offer and it's really clear. And also if you're a total beginner and you don't yet have a website and you're feeling really reluctant to get started, create this Google My Business listing. And then you can see kind of in the middle at the very bottom, it says website. You can actually create a free Google website. They have like 3 templates to choose from. It's pretty simple, but you can upload your own pictures and basically just have like the most simple information there. And now it's going to be easy for someone to Google you and find you. So even if you're taking orders over the phone, you still need to have a website. So at the very least, have this free website with your name on it so that someone can find you on the internet and call you. Fine. The next way to improve your search engine optimization that I feel is really easy, for farmers to do is just directories. So the way that SEO works is that the more links out there on the internet that are pointing back to your website, that are linked to your website, the more credibility it gives your website. So if there's a bunch of websites out there that have a link to your website, it's going to improve where you are when people search for grass-fed products. So you're going to show up sooner in the search. You're going to be on, you want to be closer to the beginning. You want to be closer to the top of the first page because people don't really scroll that far. And you definitely want to show up on that map because that's always showing up on a Google search now. And if you're on that map, it's just much easier for people to see that you're there. So there's a bunch of free directories, there's paid directories, and this is the #1 way to get those links back to your website. So if you haven't done this, spend a day before things get super crazy this summer and just sign up for free directories. I do recommend that you keep a list or like a spreadsheet somewhere of what you've signed up for, because over time, new ones are created and you kind of forget where you might have signed up for, and you might change what you're offering or how to order, and you might need to update it. So just keep a list of what you've signed up for. And, some paid directories are also worth it. I'm a Minnesota Grown member. There is a license fee for that. But I definitely think it's worth it. And, I ask in my emails, how did you find us? And I do hear people say, I found you in the Minnesota Grown directory. So that's an added bonus. Next slide. And now social media. So, social media will suck your time. That's not to say that you shouldn't do it, but as someone who's been, farming and doing social media for a while, the #1 thing I can say is just don't think that it's the be all end all, but you do want to have a presence somewhere. But pick where you feel the most comfortable, what feels the easiest, and pick that and stick with it. So, I do all these channels, but where I feel really the most comfortable and where I've decided to focus is Instagram, and that is tied to Facebook, and so it does post to both. But if you're trying to be an Instagram influencer, you need to post every day, and you really need to be posting reels now because those are getting picked up by the algorithm first. And the reality is that I don't think most of us have time for that if you're also moving your animals every day out in the pasture. So I don't think that it's that important to focus your time on that unless you really enjoy it and unless that's your favorite thing about sharing your farm with people. I will say it's important to have a presence so that people can find you there, but also I don't think that social media is the #1 way to make sales. What I think social media is about is storytelling and that connection with your customers. So people don't come to your Instagram page to see what the latest sale is or how to order. They come because they're just curious about, what you're doing, or they want to see your cute puppy pictures, or they want to see your bouncing lambs in the pasture. So, I basically post once a month, and I post, a picture with kind of a really long caption, and I want it to be personal and I want it to be authentic. And I want people to actually care when they read it, because for me, that's way more important than just pumping out content to try to get more followers. I'm not interested in being an influencer. I'm interested in connecting with my customers. And because I do sell locally, I don't feel like I need a huge social media following. I feel like I want my following to be people who live nearby me, who might someday buy from me or visit the farm. If you are going to start shipping nationally, then I would say that's a different conversation. Then I would say you might want to up your social media game because now anybody's your customer. So, that's it's how you want to spend your time. It's how you're making your sales. It's who you want your followers to be. While I only post once a month, I do post to stories now almost every day. And for me, I can justify spending time doing that because it's easy. I'm just posting videos of chores that I do every day anyway. I don't have to think hard about what I'm saying. I'm not choreographing dance moves. I'm just posting my chores and, you know, writing my little funny comments about what the lambs are up to or what the dogs are doing. And I do get tons of people who ask me questions based on those videos. And it's like, I've gotten new customers that way, people who got sucked in because someone shared puppy cam with them or lamb cam. But really it's about just telling the story of what I'm doing more than trying to sell. Of course, there is a link in my bio that goes back to how to order, and you definitely want that there. You want that on all your channels. But that's just to say, like, don't think social media has to be everything in terms of your online presence. Be protective of your time. Next slide. And then how are you going to increase your customer base? So this can get a little bit more like old school. You still want to be increasing your customer base word of mouth. You want to be increasing community relationships around you. You can do traditional promotions. You can do old school flyering. You can think about adding additional products to meet demand, additional online networks like Facebook groups, and then hosting on-farm events can be really huge for expanding your customer base. Next slide. Flyering was one thing that I mentioned because when I asked all those customers how they were finding me, I was astounded how many people found me through these flyers. So Canva is an app you can put on your phone, or you can do it online on your computer to create really simple marketing materials. You don't have to be a graphic designer. They have all sorts of templates. You can just input your own photos. You can use their fonts. It's pretty easy to figure out and work with. And that's what I use to create these flyers. And I put the little old-fashioned like tags at the bottom. But of course, those tags lead to my website. And so I thought about where my ideal customers would be. And I ended up posting these flyers mostly at all the food co-ops in the Twin Cities and in Duluth. And like I said, I was super surprised that this worked. And a lot of people found me this way and have been really loyal customers. So I think that just speaks to the fact that I was thinking about who my ideal customer was and where they were shopping. But there are all these other options to think about too. And you should really think about your community connections and focus on those too, because those are going to be your people who you're going to kind of already be speaking their language in your marketing. Next slide. Excuse me. And then this is pretty old-fashioned and traditional too, but if you haven't pursued any local press, I would consider doing it. You know, we have gotten this article just recently in our like local county paper and owned by the same one as our nearby town. And, you know, I've written some like op-ed pieces or letters to the editor, which has also helped give us some attention. You can also write a press release and send it out to try to get interest in your article, someone writing an article about you. But another way to do that is the same way as like asking a friend to write a bio, is ask a friend or a family member to contact the editor of your local newspaper and say, have you heard about this really cool farm and what they're doing? And you should write a story about them. This is just a way to, you know, increase basic awareness of that you're there and in the community. Next slide. Excuse me, I need to take a drink. And then community events and agritourism. So this is a wonderful way to increase customers. When you're doing pasture products, you probably have a beautiful pasture that people are going to want to spend time in and think is amazing. And so even if this is like not your strong suit, I would highly recommend having like an annual tour of your farm for your customers, inviting them out to see what it is you do, inviting them to see the animals in person, and inviting them to like really feel a part of the good work that you're doing in terms of taking care of the animals, taking care of the environment. Like your customers want to feel a part of taking care of the environment too. And you want to just offer them an opportunity to feel a part of that. Next slide. So management, how are you going to manage all of these additional relationships? You can think about clarifying your website. If you're getting more customers and you're getting more people contacting you and you see that they're asking the same questions, see how you can improve your website to answer those questions automatically. Then, excuse me, but think about your strengths. If you're more of a phone person, budget more time for talking on the phone with your customers. Check in with people after they've purchased from you, ask them how they're liking it, if they have any questions about how to cook it. That's going to create a committed customer who's buying from you again and again, which means then you can do less marketing because they're just buying from you again. Social media is a great way to engage with many people at once. So it is a way to manage those relationships, but that's more about the storytelling than making sales. And then email newsletters. So, excuse me. We're going to talk a little bit more about email newsletters because I think this is a pain point for a lot of people, or people feel really weird as farmers about sending emails, but I do think it's important. And then also I'll touch on online marketplaces, because once you start to grow and make more sales, you might find that you're running out of time for taking orders. And so it's worth investigating e-commerce. Next slide. Okay. Excuse me 1 minute. I had a frog in my throat or something. Okay. So email list. No, you don't have to send emails every week unless you're delivering every week. But that said, Barn to Door has done research and says that email is actually 40 times more effective than Facebook in helping your business find new customers. And so if you're not collecting email addresses for your customers, definitely start doing that now. Whether that's at the farmer's market or on your website, you need to be asking your customers for their email. So on my website, I've put in the subscribe button to my email newsletter on almost every page. So no matter how my customers are coming to my website, there's an invitation to sign up, no matter what page they're landing on, because there's no guarantee they're going to go to the next page. But if you have compelled them enough to say, I want to stay in touch with you, you want to just give them that option to sign up right away. And you don't have to be making all hard sales pitches in your emails. Your email list and what I say on my website on one page is like, sign up for an invitation to our farm party. That's pretty compelling, and it's like a soft pitch to be a part of our community. It's not like you have to buy meat. It's like anyone can come see our farm and learn about regenerative agriculture. There are a number of different email management systems you can use. MailChimp is free, and that's what I use, but there's also Constant Contact and other ones out there. MailChimp does have a lot of really great integrations now. And another thing I'll just say is, like, people feel reluctant to show up in their customers' email box. They think that, people get too much junk mail and they don't want to overwhelm their customers. And while that's true, you have a really special relationship with your customers as their farmer. You're really not annoying. You're not, Old Navy crowding up their email. You're someone who has something they really want. They want not just your product, but they want to feel connected to you. They want to feel like they have a relationship with you. So when they see an email from you, they're much more likely to open it than just any other promotional email. I think they say, like, across the board marketing, like a 2% open rate of emails is good. And as you can see right there, like, my open rate is over 50%. And I don't think that's just because, I'm a great marketer. I think it's because I'm a farmer. And really, I think that all of you have the same opportunity to reach your customers with email. So if you haven't been doing email marketing, I would definitely try to start collecting your customers there. I'll also say, like, you know, when you post something on Facebook, you don't know for sure who's going to see it. You don't know that your actual customers are going to see it. But if you've got their email address, you have a direct way to speak to them. And yes, they might not open it, but at least you're reaching the person you're trying to reach and not just random strangers across the country. So that's the additional benefit. Yeah, so do email marketing. You don't have to send weekly emails, and I don't send a whole lot of emails, and I think that's maybe another reason why I have a high open rate. Like, my customers are waiting for that email because they know that it's time to order and they don't want to miss out. They don't want everything to sell out before they get a chance. So I don't send a lot of emails, but I still have a lot of email addresses on my email list. And that just makes it like way easier to sell my products because it's a bigger pool. But if I didn't have a way to reach those people and ask them to order, you know, I'd be missing out on all those new customers. Next slide. E-commerce. So when I started, I was just taking all of my orders through a free Google form. And that integrates really well with Squarespace and other websites too. And that worked perfectly fine for a long time. And so, you know, it's free. You can design it to answer whatever question you want. But but the downside of that was that I was finding I was running out of time for responding to those orders. So when people order through that order form, you get an email in your inbox, or you can also have it be put into a spreadsheet. But basically, when people were ordering, I was having to respond and confirm their order and send them a link to pay the deposit. And that was fine for a long time, but when I grew to a certain point, I saw myself that the thing I wasn't doing very well was responding to orders on time. And that seemed like a pretty big deal. If someone's come to that point to commit, to say they want to order, it seems important to confirm it right away. And so during the pandemic, I did decide to invest in an e-commerce site. And so I happened to go with Barn to Door. There are a number of options, and I'm not going to tell you like which one is the best because I think there's a lot of positives and negatives to all of them. I will say if you are in Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture does have an e-commerce grant where they will pay a 50% cost share for implementing e-commerce. So if you're thinking about it, definitely look into that. But basically it did solve my problem in that now people are immediately getting order confirmations. It's working and it's like solved that headache. However, it's expensive. And so I do think that you shouldn't invest in it if you're not sure that you're ready or you're not sure that you need to. Like, some people might come to e-commerce and think like this is how they're going to find all of their customers. But really, I feel like e-commerce is about managing the customers you've already found. And so you really need to be doing all these other things I've already spoken about first before I feel like it's worth it to pay the high price of doing e-commerce. Next slide. So picking the right e-commerce platform. So just because there are so many and I can't speak to all of them, I wanted to include just a snippet of this document, which is available from the University of Wisconsin Extension. And this is actually only a short snippet of it. It's a long document. That link links right to it, but you can also Google this and find it. And it really just tells you a rating based on farmer experience using it, and then what the fee is, and what it might best be used for. Next slide. And then other resources. So there are a lot of free resources out there. Barn to Door does happen to have a lot of blog posts about marketing and how to improve it. They also do these market trends and data. They do these reports frequently. Same with Gray's Cart. They also have not only a blog, but also a podcast. And that's a great one to listen to if you want to dive more into any of these marketing issues. You can obviously Google SEO for beginners. Like, that's a great way to start. The National Young Farmers Coalition also has a farmer's guide to those e-commerce or direct sales software platforms. And then there are these, other resources you can Google, like Charlotte Smith does a marketing coach. She has a lot of free material, and then she does also have a paid course. If you feel like marketing is a weakness and you really want to go deeper, it could be worth it to spend some money and spend a winter doing one of these courses. Abraham's Table Farm, I'm friends with them, and they did this last winter, and it really improved things for them, and they kind of expanded basically all of their marketing avenues and really improved their website off of her advice. And then this Five Mary's Farm. So they're kind of like a premier, really expensive marketing course. But this is what, when I've seen farms really explode, it's because they have spent a big investment in something like this program. And so this is what Leslie at Thailand Rolling Acres did last year, I believe. I think she's still doing some of it. So if you have questions about that, you can always reach out to someone like Leslie. And again, it's like, it might not be for you, but if you're thinking about doing like national sales, then you might want to think about upping your marketing game through like a training program. And next slide. And that's pretty much it. So like your plan, this is just kind of a recap. Like, you want to identify your ideal customer, be sure that you're communicating what your value really is, selecting your tools wisely to manage your time wisely, focusing on your strengths, because that's going to be the easiest way to save time, but then also stretching yourself just a little bit. If there's like something you feel that you can learn or focus in on, it might be just the thing you need to bump you up just a bit. And with that, I really thank you for your time, and I think we'll open it up to questions now.
And give you a break from talking.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I was just like, how can I give her a break? Well, that was a fantastic presentation, Hannah. Thank you for going through all of that. We did have a couple of questions. Let me kind of pull up my sheet here. I was curious when you first started talking about marketing basics and like your ideal customer. How did you identify who your ideal customer was? Like, did it take a little while to kind of find the right fit, or what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, when you first start, it's like you can kind of see how, all sorts of different people, like, you're like, well, I would take that customer. You feel like you kind of take anyone. But in terms of like prioritizing your marketing time, it makes sense to really focus in, because you don't have time to really give everyone what they want. And for me, it kind of came down to realizing what kind of customer was taking too much time. And some of it too is just like our personality and what we like to do, and like what we wanted kind of our identity to look like, and what kind of person resonated with that identity. So, like the picture of like the tattooed mom is like, I feel like our customer like kind of wants a cool farm. Whereas there are some customers who like, might really want like this very, like family focused farm with like a big family, and like the more like classic traditional kind of farm aesthetic. So not everybody, has the same identity. And I think that's a way to realize that like we're not actually in competition with each other, even though we might all be selling the same products and we have the same values behind them. People are going to connect with you individually based on who you are. So it is about what you want, what you think that customer wants, but it's also really connecting personally with that ideal customer.
Mm-hmm. And then you talked a lot about like maintaining relationship, or like, there's different ways of maintaining relationships with your customers, and you always try to ask them about how they found out about you. Do you ask any other questions, or like send out any evals, or like, is there any other way that you get feedback from your customers to learn ways that you can improve your business in other ways?
Yeah, I have done that in the past. And I think it was especially valuable when I was getting started. And I would say it was probably especially valuable then because I was still honing in on that ideal customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so asking more questions about like what was the most important to them, like quality versus convenience versus price. When I was kind of seeing what people were asking for, it kind of, it helped me make decisions. But also just think about like which customer did I wish I had more of. And, I kind of wished I had less customers who were calling me, more customers who were really comfortable buying things online.
And then making it comfortable for them with all those pictures.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Somebody asked earlier about how do you ship your frozen products to a customer across the country?
So I actually don't ship frozen products. This is something, if you are going to get into, I would recommend researching. And I think that both Graze Cart and Barn to Door have resources and information about it. Talk to other producers who are doing it, or that Five Marys course. There's a whole segment on it just about how to ship. I will say that it changes your management quite a bit, because one, at this point in time, what I'm hearing is that you have to be able to buy those mailers in bulk in order to get a good enough price to make it worth it. And they keep on upping their minimums. And so farmers are kind of going in on it together in order to make those minimums, because sometimes, especially when you're first getting started, it's like you have to have a warehouse almost to keep all of those mailers. So it's not for everybody, but there is a huge opportunity there. And like I said, I haven't done it, so I don't know the specifics of what you want to do, but there are tons of resources to help you figure it out.
Great. All right, and then I encourage everybody, if you have questions that came up earlier, throw them in the chat if you hadn't already. So we've got, all right, so I've heard that with selling meat, that because it's expensive, it's good to have a lower investment product to draw people in and build trust before they'll buy meat. For instance, selling eggs, which doesn't make much profit, but helps develop those relationships. Have you found this true when selling online?
So we actually only offer eggs here at the farm. And so I personally can't say that doing eggs, I personally don't have that experience. However, I have heard that that's true. And I have sometimes offered neighbors' eggs to customers. But I think that what has helped a little bit more, the way we've looked at it, is there are some customers who are reluctant to buy a quarter or half because they feel like they don't eat that much meat, or they feel like they don't have the storage space for it, the freezer space. So we did pretty quickly start offering these beef boxes, which are a smaller size. They're more like a 10th or a 12th of a cow. And that did allow us to expand our customers to this group of people who seemed curious about us and interested in us and wanted to support us, but were reluctant to make a bigger investment. And some of those customers then did go on to feel comfortable buying the quarter, but there is a certain segment of our customer base that only buys those boxes. And so that is a smaller investment, but it's still, it's much bigger than eggs. But also for us, because we are delivering direct to people's doors, basically it has to be a bigger sale in order for that to be worth it.
That makes sense. All right, and then we have some interest in your farm parties. What sorts of things do you do that day, and how many people do you have to run the event?
So we started off just doing potlucks, and I think that's a great way to start. It helps people feel comfortable, like offering something, like showing up with something. I think that helps contribute to like the community feel. We also had some customers say like, oh my God, this was the fanciest potluck I've ever been to, because these are like all these people who care about food and come bringing like this really awesome offerings. It's like very different than a church basement potluck. So that was kind of fun. So we also do a tour, and some people don't go on the tour. They just want to come and hang out, but a lot of people are really curious about that part. And then we've also had a bonfire. We usually do a bonfire for the people who want to stay later. We offer to let people tent and stay over if they want to. And we've also had live music. So when we did finally rebuilt the barn, the 1880s timber frame barn, this past summer was the first year we were able to have an event in there, and so we did have a live band and dancing. Because of COVID, like some people weren't comfortable being inside yet, and that was totally fine because we still had, like, you could hear the music from outside and people were still hanging out around the bonfire. And at that point, we did what we kind of told people was like we would be offering burgers and ask people to like bring their own sides or bring their own food so that there was less food sharing because of COVID. I hope that we can get back to potluck because I think that was pretty fun. But there are other ways to do it. However, there are also rules and regulations and laws to think about. And so when we've done that, like it's not a paid event, it's free. And we're giving away that product. And so that's, it really is considered a marketing event in that way, is that we're spending money. And in terms of staffing, we've never hired anybody. We've been, like our whole farm has been really lucky to have our family members help out when we need it. And so both of my husband and I's, our parents have helped with those events. So like four other people plus us. And, there's not a ton to do when it's a potluck, but just like getting set up for tables and such. Yeah, it's nice to have some hands. You could also ask your customers, like your best customers, to come help too.
That's a great idea, asking some of your like really loyal customers, because if they really want to feel like they're part of it and helping, then
yeah,
there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's a question about the barn. How did you find the old barn to build and renovate the new house with?
Well, my husband is a little bit crazy, and he just found it on Craigslist. He loves big projects, and he's constantly looking on Craigslist for things. And I mean, he also has like stopped and knocked on people's doors and asked them about their barns before. And actually the vintage camper trailer, that's how he found that, is he just like drove by it. It was sitting in someone's yard. It wasn't even for sale. And he left a note in their mailbox, and sure enough, the guy called him back and said, yeah, I'll sell it. But there are a lot of great barns out there that are just getting torn down faster and faster. So there are a lot of people who, don't have the resources to take them down, but wish that it wouldn't just get bulldozed. And so asking around is pretty easy these days.
Mm-hmm. All right, do we have any other questions? I see lots of comments that your responses have been helpful and thanking you, and some folks are starting to log off. Okay. So also wondering how you determine the price you charge for your Airbnbs.
We are still figuring that out. I mean, we set our hip camps for the vintage camper trailer based on, what some other similar ones around us were going for. And that's around $100 a night for the weekend. I think it's like 80 in the weeknight. We're still fiddling around with the farm stay. It's like, but what we've kind of talked with our farm business management instructor about is that setting that price is actually really attracting your ideal customer. So you have to decide what kind of customer you want in your agritourism as well. So we're setting it a little bit high, and we're going to see what we get. And really that's because, like, especially to start, we're more interested in like having time to interact with the people who come here, as opposed to just like making sure it's always booked. So it's really more about like the relationships. I keep talking about that, but like we want the people to come and really get to know us and see what we're doing, and not just like book it on Airbnb to make money and have random people who don't really care about the farm who are just looking for a place to sleep. And so I think setting it a little bit higher is kind of narrowing, you know, who's going to be interested. And I will also say, like, we aren't putting it on Airbnb to start, at least. We're using HipCamp and this site called Yonder, which is also already narrowing the field of who's going to be interested, because those two sites market primarily to people who are interested in the outdoors and in farms.
Great. Well, it looks like we got through all of our questions for the evening. Oh, no, wait. How did you instruct Airbnb visitors about electric fences and farm safety?
We do have some signs. I try to, we have like a welcome book with like kind of instructions, and that's in there really prominently, like don't touch the electric fences over and over again. And really just, yeah, trying to mention that the first time we say, welcome, you're here. By the way, that's an electric fence right there. That's what they look like. And, you don't want to get shocked. And farm safety in general, like we kind of have stressed that a lot too, like just don't go in any pastures where gates are closed, like ask first, don't touch any animals without permission. Like we're happy to give you a tour. We're happy to have you interact with them and walk in any areas that aren't fenced in. But there is also in Minnesota a law about agritourism, which says that anyone engaging in agritourism, the farmer is not liable if anything should happen, but you do have to have a sign posted. And you can get a sign from the Minnesota Farmers Union. And that just kind of helps a little bit with that, although, you still want to be clear about your expectations.
Good follow-up, Heidi. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for your time tonight and your presentation. It was really helpful and informative. Thank you, everybody, for logging in tonight. This has been recorded, so if you want to review anything that Hannah shared, we're going to get this posted by lunch tomorrow, probably. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So thank you all. Have a good night, and best of luck as everybody's kicking things off with the spring. Bye,
Thank
Hannah.
you, guys. Bye.